Sometimes a child grows up digging its own grave. Rick and Morty's 6th episode of the first season, Rick Potion number 9, depicts this very truth with an existential pain that penetrates to the very bone. As Morty Smith buries his own corpse with his own hands, he buries his childhood, his innocence, and his last hope that the universe is fair. And in that moment, one of the greatest tragedies in the world takes place. Man realizes for the first time that the universe does not care about his hopes. It all starts with an ordinary, youthful dream. Morty dreams of dancing with Jessica. As the school's flu season dance approaches, his excitement is strong enough to pierce a child's heart. He just wants to be loved. But at that moment, in the pursuit of love, that desired and always lacking thing as Plato described it, he hits the hard walls of reality. Jessica is not interested in him. Social status, attractiveness, popularity. Morty is the weakest link in this battle, and there's a voice inside you. What if this fate can be changed? Morty turns to his grandfather Rick, the smartest and most reckless man in the universe. For Rick, this request is not the naive wish of a child. For him, love is merely a biochemical illusion for mating. He is a character who simultaneously embodies Freud's repressed desires, Nietzsche's moral values that collapse after the death of God, and Camus's absurd world. Rick explains love in terms of a few molecules and a neurochemical reaction.
Listen, Morty, I hate to break it to you, but what people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed.
Rick is a radical nihilist who believes that nothing in this world is permanent or meaningful. But Morty has not yet hit the hard walls of existence. He is blinded by the dream of Jessica. Rick's scientific bravado, combined with Morty's naive desire, opens the door to destiny. The love potion is prepared, and Rick's tiny warning disappears like a whisper that will decide the fate of the universe.
Unless she has the flu.
But love is blind. This promise does not reach Morty's ears. On the night of the dance, he goes to Jessica with the love potion in his pocket, his hopes in a bottle. He administers the potion. Jessica's eyes light up. Her voice trembles.
I love you, Morty. I love you so much it burns.
The dream has come true. But then Jessica sneezes. At that moment, Camus' definition of the absurd comes true. We watch the transformation of a simple desire into a universal catastrophe. The flu virus and the love potion combine. Morty's hope for a little bit of love sparks the destruction of the world. The virus gets into the air and spreads rapidly. Everyone at school falls in love with Morty, from the teacher to the janitor. But this love turns into an addiction full of repressed desires, at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sartre's phrase, "hell is other people," is no longer just words. It becomes a real torture. Morty is trapped in the middle of a crowd with thousands of eyes locked on him. Love turns into obsession, and then into destruction. As he and Rick run away, Morty asks desperately,
Oh, crap! What are we gonna do, Rick?
Rick, as always, claims to have a solution. The antidote is ready. Praying mantis DNA. The most powerful thing to destroy love is a law of nature that, according to Rick, consumes love and then destroys it, like the female mantis decapitating the male after mating. Love is inherently destructive, and Rick thinks this is the solution. However, the human psyche and biology do not fit Rick's formula. Rick has forgotten that, as Freud said, everything repressed will one day return with greater force. Instead of returning people to normal, the antidote turns them into giant insect mutant. It is no longer love, but a kind of biological instinct for destruction. Morty is now the object of desire not only of love, but also of death. Here Nietzsche's famous quote, "If you stare into the abyss for too long, the abyss stares back," comes to mind. Morty is now at the edge of that abyss. The limit reached by Rick's genius and arrogance has created an irreversible disaster. Rick finds one last solution: koala, rattlesnake, shark, dinosaur DNA. In a random effort, like a child trying to build a complex structure with Legos, he creates a new antidote. Rick's science is no longer controlled knowledge, but an absurd art. Like Camus' Sisyphus, Rick pushes his boulder up one more time, but it will roll down again. And so it does. The last serum turns all of humanity into a formless mass of flesh. Humanity is gone. There is only one option left for Rick and Morty: escape. Rick opens a portal. Morty takes one last look at the world he left behind. At this point, a child grows up, leaving behind all his innocence. Because what he is about to see is an image that will never leave him, burying his own corpse at the head of his own grave. When Morty sees his own corpse in front of his eyes, time stops. The rest of the world is now just background noise. Facing his own lifeless body screams at him that nothing will ever be the same again. At the edge of that pit lies not only a corpse, but also his own past and identity. Childhood is over. Here, Carl Gustav Jung's shadow archetype comes into play. According to Jung, human beings cannot mature without confronting their dark and repressed aspects. For Morty, this grave is a moment of self-realization. But this realization comes with unspeakable pain and alienation. He is no longer a child, but a being who has buried his own mortality and the indifference of the universe up to his eyes. With each shovel stroke, an illusion is destroyed. That the world is fair, that life has meaning, that his actions will have a lasting impact. And all of this disappears, mingling with the damp smell of the earth. The camera's slow focus on Morty's dull face recalls the moment in Sartre's novel Nausea, when the protagonist realizes the weight of existence. He is now just a spectator. Life passes by, but he is not part of anything. As beliefs about the universe are buried under the earth, Morty is suddenly reminded of Camus' Sisyphus. Sisyphus realized the absurdity of existence, yet he did not stop pushing his rock up the hill. At some point, Morty closes the pit and buries his inner cry in silence, because now he knows no one exists for a specific purpose. No one belongs anywhere. Everyone will die. Morty's nihilistic discourse later turns into the famous sentence he will say to Summer in the 8th episode of the series.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die.
This sentence is not only a resignation, it is also a kind of rebellion of Camus' absurd man. If life has no great meaning, then there is no harm in at least experiencing small pleasures and momentary pleasures. And what about Rick? What did he feel at that pit? Rick stands at the grave for only a few seconds. At that moment, we don't even know if Rick is having a conflict inside, because Rick seems to have gone beyond all the pain and frustration that a human being can feel. He is a man who has declared his own godhood in a world where Nietzsche said, God is dead. He rules himself. He breaks himself. He creates and destroys universes. But even he is sometimes crushed by the curse of his own godhood. When do we ever see Rick really happy? What we see is constant escape, constant hiding behind a bottle of alcohol and deep loneliness. Another character, Bird Person, explains the hidden meaning behind Rick's famous wubba lubba dub dub screams. That phrase actually means, I'm in a lot of pain. Please help me. Rick's indifference is actually a mask for an unbearable existential pain. His insensitive attitude is only a protective shield, because he knows best how meaningless and cold the universe is. And what he knows best is how much those who still hold hope, like Morty, suffer when they meet this reality. Rick, he knew that. He could imagine how hard it would be for Morty, but he had chosen to live, as Camus said, like the man who is liberated by the absurdity of life, at least according to his own rule. But there is a moment of pause as he looks into Morty's eyes. Perhaps Rick is remembering the first time he experienced these feelings in his youth. But then he puts on his cynical mask again and turns to Morty.
There's an infinite number of realities, Morty, and in a few dozen of those, I got lucky and turned everything back to normal.
Rick's words bring to mind Dostoevsky's notion that everything is permissible. If there is no God, if the universe has no purpose, then anything goes. For Rick, values, morality, commitment, they're all fluid and unimportant. But Morty, he still wanted things to make sense. So this scene is a breaking moment for Morty. He will never be the same again. His innocent love for Jessica, the excitement at the school dance, the ordinary bonds with his family, all of that is now in the pit. And that day, as a boy digs his own grave, he grows up never to be the same again. Only after digging one's own grave does one discover who one really is. Because to face death is to face not only a biological end, but also the death of a self, an identity, and even a universe. Morty burying his own corpse with his own hands is therefore not just a tragedy, but the simplest and most brutal metaphor for being human. We all carry a grave within ourselves. Our childhood beliefs, the truths we were taught, the bright dreams of the future. One day, life hits us in the face that these were never real. That's when one's real journey begins, because whatever remains beyond the graveyard is your true self. The tragedy of man is that he cannot decide what to do with this emptiness. Will he live like Rick, drunkenly drifting in an ocean of nothingness? Or like Morty? Will he look at that grave, weep his tears, and keep on walking? Perhaps the issue lies in the fine line between survival and being alive. To survive is a biological imperative, but to be alive is to be willing to carry your own weight. At this point, the most ancient question of existential philosophy comes to us. What does one do in the face of nothingness? The answer is neither on the dusty shelves of philosophy books, nor in the cold test tubes of laboratories. The answer lies in one's own gaze, in how one looks at the world when one wakes up in the morning, and how one feels when one lays one's head on the pillow at night. Sometimes the search for meaning is meaning in itself. Other times, giving up the search for meaning is freedom itself. Perhaps Morty has unwittingly solved the great mystery that philosophers have debated for ages. The universe may not have a great purpose, but man can create a whole universe in small moments. In a laugh, in a television program, in a moment spent with a loved one, man builds his own cosmos. He may not be able to travel between infinite universes. He may not be able to change the past, but by appreciating a moment, he can become the god of his own world. So the question should never have been, what is the meaning of life? The question is, what kind of a person will you choose to be in the face of the meaninglessness of life? And when you find the answer, then you can go beyond the grave.
When you were born, there was thunder, fire lit in the sky as to lead astray. Now heavy rain pours out of you.